Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Absolute Resonance Part 12 based on novel. So let's start. How is this possible? How can his water mirror art block Song Yunfeng's full strength move? The entire audience was shocked silly by this development. Everyone had looks of puzzlement on their faces. They were not unfamiliar with the water mirror art, and some of the water resonance users in the crowd also utilized this move. However, blocking Song Yunfeng's attack like Li Luo had just done was just a pipe dream for them. This clearly incomprehensible situation had unfolded right in front of their eyes. Differ Qing's beautiful eyes had widened into full moons and her jaw dropped. Did I just see something supernatural? Bei Kuan was equally dumbfounded. Lu Qing'e, who was not far away, also had a look of surprise. Her slender eyebrows were raised, her eyes focused on Li Luo. It was as she had guessed, Li Luo did have some means to deal with Song Yunfeng. Even an impossible situation could be turned around by him. Amidst the cacophony of shouts, Li Luo shook his stinging arms before making his way into the inner part of the stage. He stared at Song Yunfeng, whose expression was flickering between jubilation and frustration, smirking and rushing towards him. Deep down, he could feel a great sense of accomplishment and joy spreading through him. His experiment had truly succeeded. The resonance art he had just used looked like the water mirror art, but there were some additional intricacies to it. This was because Li Luo had infused it with light resonance power, layering the shadow reversal art atop it. The water mirror art would reflect a portion of the attack back to mitigate its effect, while the shadow reversal art was designed to reflect the opponent's attack as a counterattack. These two reflective resonance arts had led to become an exceptionally strong water mirror art that could reflect even the strongest attacks. Li Luo had experimented and discovered that when the two arts were perfectly synchronized, they might even be able to cause severe harm to the opponent, using their own abilities to counter themselves. This modified version of the water mirror art had been renamed to the Waterlight Demon Mirror. Stop screwing around and pretending to be mysterious. Do you really think that you can change the inevitable outcome? Just as Li Luo was celebrating to himself, Song Yunfeng's expression turned gloomy and he shot out explosively towards Li Luo. His fingers were arched like talons, and as he slashed down, sharp, crimson-red talons materialized from his resonant power, tearing through the skies. There was no hesitation as he continued his stream of attacks. Li Luo immediately reacted with his strengthened water mirror art, and a thin curtain once again appeared in front of him. Peng! Song Yunfeng's savage blow collided directly. A muffled sound could be heard when their moves clashed. Both of them were simultaneously forced back. Song Yunfeng had prepared himself for the recoil and hence did not end up embarrassed like the previous exchange. However, his expression instantly became uglier as he realized that Li Luo's water mirror art was too insidious. Every clash felt as though he was punching himself instead of the opponent. What intonation was this? Could it even be considered a water mirror art? Song Yunfeng's blitz had been stonewalled by Li Luo, and the entire audience gulped in trepidation. This happening once could be considered luck, more than that demonstrated skill. It wasn't only them who were confused. Even the ones sitting on the raised platform, such as the old dean, Xu Shanyu, Lin Feng, and so on, were equally startled by the scene before them. Li Luo's water mirror art is clearly normal, the old dean commented in surprise. The rest of the teachers nodded in agreement. The run-of-the-mill water mirror art would never be able to leave Song Yunfeng in such a miserable state. Its reflective strength has similarities to the Duke Resonance Art mysterious water mirror, the teacher commented. However, this was quickly met with a rebuttal. Do you really think Li Luo is able to utilize a Duke stage resonance art with his 6th seal stage resonant power? The one who previously raised this point was silent and unable to reply. Duke stage resonance arts required immense amounts of resonant power, so much that even a 10th seal stage cultivator might not be able to utilize them. That is definitely a water mirror art, Xu Shanyu concluded after close observation. However, it looks as though Li Luo has also modified it. The other teachers stared at each other blankly. Modifying a resonance art? Although they all knew that Li Luo was extremely gifted in understanding and executing resonance arts, this idea seemed preposterous. Could a person of his caliber and cultivation level even have the ability to do so? Unfortunately, this seemed to be the only possible explanation. He truly is the son of those two. In the end, the rest could only sigh at the thought of this. On the other hand, teacher Lin Feng had been completely silent from the beginning, his face completely black. This entire scene had played out completely different from his expectations. Back to the battle stage, the audience were cheering repeatedly in waves at the intensifying battle. Song Yunfeng looked so gloomy, it was frightening. He stared daggers at Li Luo as he continued to ponder his next action. Every time he wished to take action, he would be reminded of that special water mirror art and could only stop himself. "Do you dare to attack me?" Song Yunfeng said through gritted teeth. He realized that Li Luo could only use the water mirror art to counter his moves. So long as he did not take the initiative to strike, Li Luo's water mirror art would be useless. Li Luo grinned upon hearing those words. Slightly shaking his head, he retorted, "I wouldn't dare." "Why don't you try?" Song Yunfeng was so furious upon hearing this that he was trembling in anger. He finally experienced firsthand what it meant to be frustrated and indignant. He was clearly multiple times stronger than Li Luo, but this damned tortoise shell of a move just kept hindering him. His hands were truly tied. Song Yunfeng was not a complete imbecile. He gradually calmed himself down and began to consider his options. All of a sudden, he dashed towards Li Luo. The difference this time was that he had suppressed his resonant power significantly. This water mirror art is a high-grade resonant art, so its resonant power consumption must be considerable. If I can force Li Luo to consistently activate it, then he will be drained of his resonant power. When he is no longer able to sustain the move, he will no longer have any means to fight back anymore, and there will be nothing to fear, Song Yunfeng mused to himself. When Li Luo saw Song Yunfeng's change in tactics, he could also sense the reduced resonant power output by Song Yunfeng. Thinking things through, he was quickly able to grasp his intentions. Looks like he does have a brain after all. However, if he suppresses his resonant power, why would I be afraid of him? Li Luo smiled. Song Yunfeng's tyrannical advantage came from his superior resonant power. Now that he was resorting to his hands and feet instead, what was there to fear? Hence, he took the initiative to move towards Song Yunfeng. The two bodies directly clashed, hands and feet pummeling each other, bereft of resonant power. Even then, their physical prowess could produce sonic booms upon attacking. The two were fighting in close combat, complete frenzy from the position of the onlookers. However, as things went by, Song Yunfeng's expression changed for the worse. He had discovered that without the assistance of his resonant power, he had no way to overpower Li Luo. Song Yunfeng's gaze was filled with fury, and he suddenly burst out with his full potential, punching out with a berserk blow infused with crimson resonant power, hoping to deal an unexpected, vicious blow. When his fist was about to collide with Li Luo, the dreaded water curtain once again appeared. Clearly, Li Luo had prepared himself to execute the resonance art at a moment's notice. Peng! When his furious fist collided with the water curtain, massive amounts of resonant power rebounded back towards Song Yunfeng, forcing him to retreat in complete depression. Li Luo had similarly been forced back, but the strain on him was less evident. Rubbing his knuckles, he gave a smile that was not a smile to Song Yunfeng, seemingly provoking him. "Li Luo, I would like to see just how many times you can keep this up with your paltry sixth seal resonant power." Song Yunfeng screamed with an ashen face full of exasperation. Crimson-red resonant power surged out of him like a tide as he attacked with everything he had. He was at the 8th seal stage, so his resonant power was significantly denser and greater than Li Luo's. Even though Li Luo possessed a water resonance, he would still use the most direct method to grind down his reserves. Song Yunfeng did not bother to take a break. He immediately activated all of his resonant power to launch yet another battery of blows. In response, Li Luo continued to use his water mirror art as per before. Peng! A familiar scene took place when the two were knocked back. For the next few moments, the audience continued to watch dumbstruck as the two continued the exact same set of motions. Song Yunfeng charged forward like an enraged bull, while Li Luo activated his water mirror art much like a matador with his cape. Then a bang would be heard and the two would separate. No one felt that this was exceptionally strange. They all knew that Li Luo had less resonant power to begin with and that it would be a matter of how long he could keep up. These repetitive clashes continued until Li Luo's 13 water mirror art was broken. The water resonance power shrouding Li Luo seemed to have thinned out and lost its original sheen. This was the sign of resonant power exhaustion. Some within the crowd immediately voiced their regrets. It looked like things were coming to a close. Song Yunfeng, on the other hand, finally leaked out a cold smile. "What are you going to do now, Li Luo? You're all out of juice." Bang! Never one to let up an opportunity, he sprinted forward, summoning up all of his crimson-red resonant power. At this point, even his eyes had been infused red, making him look like a demonic eagle pouncing on its prey. Seeing Song Yunfeng's relentless offensive, Li Luo did not do anything. Instead, he silently stood at his current position, watching the furious, red shadow gradually growing larger in his view. At the moment when that blazing fist was about to strike, when Song Yunfeng was just an inch away from Li Luo, the attack was suddenly forced to a halt. A hand had tightly clutched onto Song Yunfeng's arm, preventing him from going any further. Frustrated, he turned to look and noticed the administrator standing right beside him, directly preventing him from making any further moves. "What the hell are you doing?" Song Yunfeng howled. The administrator was expressionless, directly pointing at a stone pillar. Atop it was an hourglass, and no one else had noticed that the sand had stopped flowing. Li Luo exaggeratedly loosened his sore shoulders, giving the most radiant and gentle smile he could at Song Yunfeng. "Oh. It looks like time's up, you idiot. Perhaps you wanted some overtime." Instead of the expected cheers, the crowd had gone silent. Everyone looked at the scene before them in complete stupefaction before turning towards the hourglass. The battle had been too intense and no one had paid any attention to the round timer. The battle was over before they had realized it. They suddenly understood that although Song Yunfeng was planning to deplete Li Luo's strength, Li Luo was similarly also playing for time. They had completely overlooked this fact. Now that the hourglass had completely emptied, the battle would be over as a draw, based on the rules. This was to say that Li Luo and Song Yunfeng had actually fought to a standstill. This was completely unexpected. No matter how one looked at it, this sort of result should not have occurred. Song Yunfeng was superior to Li Luo and had a huge advantage in both resonance and resonant power. Thus, this was supposed to be a walk in the park for Song Yunfeng, akin to him crushing dried roots underfoot. Regardless of how much Li Luo could struggle, there was no way to compete against a 7th grade resonance coupled with 8th seal stage resonant power. He had no advantage whatsoever. Unfortunately, the result begged to differ. A scene of complete domination had been juxtaposed into a draw. Their gazes naturally drifted towards the individual who had overdrafted his resonant power, the cyclopale Li Luo. Gradually, admiration emerged within their eyes. The only exception was Bei Kun. He looked as though he was constipated, and his complexion was truly a sight to behold. Diffa Qing, who was standing at the side, sullenly stared towards the stage. Her gaze seemed lifeless and her heart was in turmoil. Only after a period of time did she take a deep breath, deeply gazing at Li Luo. Although Li Luo looked pale and weak, it was as though she could see a radiant brightness emanating from him. It reminded her of a particular legend who had been immortalized in South Wind Academy's Monument of Honor. However, she quickly snapped out of that strange dream. Li Luo might have created a miracle, but he could barely hold a candle to Jiang Qing'e. On the battle stage, Song Yunfeng was sluggishly taking in the scene in front of him. All of a sudden, he lashed out at the administrator. I was clearly about to beat him. He had no more resonant power left. I would have won. Just give me another second. Just 1 second. The administrator frowned at the irate and completely ballistic Song Yunfeng. This fellow used to be a gentleman who spoke kindly to everyone around him, but now that he didn't get what he wanted, his true colors were shown. The rules are the rules. If there has been no victor declared once the hourglass is out of time, the result is a draw, the administrator stated flatly. Bullshit. Song Yun-fong growled ferociously. How could he accept a draw as a result? His face would be dragged through the mud if word got out. The administrator did not bother with him. He proceeded to announce, "This battle is now over. It is a draw. Brother Luo is awesome." The moment the administrator announced the result, the second school erupted into violent cheers and celebration loud enough to topple a mountain. Everyone in the second school was exceptionally excited as Li Luo's excellent performance had brought much face and respect to their second school. The completely bandaged Yulang even managed to barely open his mouth to croak out some comments. Is this weirdo truly rising to the top again? Even Song Yun-fong suffered. Amidst the ear-piercing howls of jubilation, Lu Qing'e quietly stared at Li Luo's silhouette. It felt as though she had been transported into the past, staring at that still immature but exceptionally talented genius who had taken the first step into learning resonance arts before any of them. Even then, he would casually give out pointers to help everyone out. The Li Luo from back then was extraordinarily outstanding. Lu Qing'e even saw him as something of an idol back then, setting him as her target. However, once his blank palace manifested, all of his wonder completely shattered. I just knew that he would definitely get back on his feet. Back then he was truly dazzling. However, he is still too weak. I want to see you climb to the top. Then I will defeat you fair and square. Lu Qing'e's hair gently swayed with the wind whilst her bright pupils burned with anticipation of their future battle. She gave Li Luo another glance before turning to leave. Who would have expected the demure and sweet beauty Lu Qing'e to possess such a strong intent to compete and battle? On the battle stage, Li Luo stared at the extremely gloomy Song Yun-fong and sighed. Sheesh. I gave you a chance, but you didn't want to take it. You truly are useless, my friend. Hearing that jibe, Song Yun-fong became even more incensed. He scowled at Li Luo. Now that you've missed this opportunity, I don't think you will ever have another chance to do so. Li Luo completely disregarded Song Yun-feng's venomous glare as he walked forward and even lightly patted him on the shoulder. With a smile on his face, he continued his tirade. I haven't forgotten your attempt to smear my parents' names. We will settle this properly in the future. Gritting his teeth, Song Yun-fong gave a cold chuckle. Well, then, I'll be waiting. Li Luo nodded and, without uttering any more extraneous words, proceeded to leave the battle stage. The students of the second school were already waiting for him, hoisting him above their heads and cheering as they departed as a group. With that group leaving, the atmosphere of the field died down. The remaining audience members curiously looked at Song Yun-fong before gradually dispersing. Li Luo was simply supposed to forfeit today. Instead, he had been provoked by Song Yun-fong into a fight, and instead of an overwhelming victory for Song Yun-fong, he had been taken for a ride by Li Luo, turning him into the butt of a joke. One could imagine how this news would spread throughout South Wind Academy and what sort of legends it would give rise to. Song Yun-fong had officially become a stepping stone of someone else's story. On the raised platform, the old dean and the teachers were silently in deep thought. This result had also exceeded their expectations. After a period of time, the old dean finally sighed. Li Luo never sought to win. His intention was always to play for time and obtain a draw. No one expected him to actually succeed. Shushan Yu, on the other hand, had smiled until his cheeks were sore, letting his expression do the talking instead. Li Luo had won him a lot of faith and respect. Despite Song Yun-fong being one of the most elite students of the first school, almost on par with Lu Qing'e, he had actually been taken for a fool and dragged into a draw. Would anyone dare to say that the second school possessed insufficient talent now? No one truly felt that this was a draw. This was because the difference in strength between Li Luo and Song Yun-fong was just too vast. One was at the 6th seal stage and had a 5th grade resonance. Song Yun-fong? 8th seal stage cultivation and a 7th grade Crimson Eagle resonance. This was incomprehensible. Even if a teacher was placed in this scenario, they would have no idea how they could possibly turn the tables. Li Luo, on the other hand, had done so. This was truly something deserving of praise. Not everyone was like Jiang Qing'e with a 9th grade resonance. When there was a will, there was a way. Lin Feng's expression was also as dark as night. Faced with Xu Shanyue's laughter, he couldn't hold it in any longer. Li Luo's performance today was impeccable. However, the preliminary examinations have a time limit. What about the college final examinations? He will require true ability then and will be unable to rely on such underhanded means. There's no meaning in this. Xu Shanyu coldly snorted. Li Luo might make further improvements by then. Even if he improves again, he'd at most be at the 7th seal stage, Lin Feng coolly retorted. The old dean waved his hand, indicating for the two to stop bickering. He stared in the direction where Li Luo had gone before giving the duo a good look. His face immediately became stern. Li Luo's performance is his problem. I want to remind you that during the college final examinations, our South Wind Academy needs to maintain our position as the #1 academy of the Jiangsu province. If any mistake arises, HMPH. Upon hearing the old dean snorting coldly, the teachers all shivered within their hearts. Lin Feng paid particular attention to those words as he knew that they were meant for him. The first school had the best students and also monopolized the lion's share of resources. The college final examinations was a litmus test for whether they truly deserved all this. Lin Feng also knew that the previous first school teacher had ruined South Wind Academy's prestigious name of the #1 academy during the last college final examinations. He had been directly booted out of the academy by an incensed old dean. Thus, if the academy did not perform well, he would not be spared either. The thought of that caused Lin Feng to feel shivers down his spine. He hurriedly assured, "Please relax, Dean. Our first school's might is evident for all to see. We will maintain the academy's honor and reputation." Good. Only then did the old dean's expression soften a little. Without speaking further, he turned and left. His departure allowed everyone else to heave a sigh of relief. An angry dean was truly frightening. Eastpool Academy seems to be extraordinarily aggressive this year. I hear that they have the full backing of the governor's mansion and that they've been rising through the ranks recently, almost catching up to Southwind Academy. The top student is the son of the governor, and I believe he goes by the name of Shi Huang. It's said that he possesses heavenly talent and is no weaker than Lu Qing'e. Thus, this year's college final examinations will not be so simple. Some of the teachers discussed worriedly. Lin Feng gave that teacher a glare and indifferently replied, "Eastpool Academy's foundation cannot compare with ours. If they want to wrest our title away, they have to get the agreement of the first school." Following which, he walked off. The rest looked at each other in dismay. Some weren't happy with Lin Feng's arrogance, but they were helpless in this situation. Grumbling to themselves, they walked away as well. "Well then, we'll leave you to handle it. If something goes wrong, then let's see who gets the last laugh." With the final battle leading to a draw, Li Luo's position was now firmly entrenched within the top 20 for the preliminary examination. Based on what had happened in the past, the top 20 would have another round of selections to determine their internal ranking. However, Li Luo was completely uninterested in this meaningless demonstration. Whether one was the 20th or the first, they would all still get an equal chance to participate in the college final examinations. Participating actually had a chance of being detrimental, because if one were to reveal their trump card, other academies would prepare for it and it would only make their life more difficult. Therefore, wasn't it better to keep a low profile? It wasn't as if getting first place warranted a reward from the old dean or anything. In fact, if it was not for Song Yunfeng stubbornly provoking him repeatedly, he would have chosen to forfeit instantly. He never felt any shame in giving up if he was unable to win. It was a loss as far as he was concerned, as he had been forced to reveal his upgraded water mirror art. This was too unworthy a platform to demonstrate his ingenuity. Hence, when Xu Shanyu had asked if he was willing to compete for the top 20 ranks, he simply responded with one word. If he had time, he would want to temper his resonance and hopefully upgrade it to the 6th grade before the final examination started. Xu Shanyu was not surprised and wished him well. Preparations for the final examination were key after all. The rankings were out the next day, and the second school had two representatives, Jiang Qing'e and Li Luo. The two could be considered peas in a pod, with Li Luo getting the 15th position and Jiang Qing'e the 16th, separated by just a hair. Li Luo's fame had greatly risen as a result of that final battle. The students all reckoned that if he was willing to compete, the top 10 positions were not out of reach. However, he had given up the opportunity to compete and was given the rank accordingly. These 20 would represent South Wind Academy in 2 weeks' time at the college final examinations. They would struggle for the right to enter the Astral Sage College. As the most elite school of the Xia Kingdom, the Astral Sage College provided a certain number of places for entry each year. The only catch was that each and every place would be hotly contested for. Each and every year, South Wind Academy usually managed to obtain the greatest number of spots, which was how they had cemented their reputation as the top academy in the Jiangsu province. It was not as though they did not have competition. East Pool Academy, for example, was a close competitor. Although they did not have as great a foundation, their rate of ascension through the ranks had been ferociously quick. Coupled with the support of the Jiangsu province's governor's mansion, they had managed to prove themselves a worthy contender for the position of top dog, especially with their stellar performance in recent years. It was rumored that East Pool Academy was hoping to unseat South Wind Academy this year, and a fierce battle between giants was expected. After the preliminary examination, South Wind Academy would normally have a week of holidays. Students could choose to head back home or continue to cultivate within the school. Li Luo chose the former. Within the old manor, inside Li Luo's room. Li Luo's eyes were closed tight, his body lightly emanating light. In front of him was a pile of already utilized 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights. After a long period of absorption, he gradually opened both his eyes. A trace of blue light flickered through his pupils. "This is the last bottle." He stared wistfully at the now empty crystal bottles and shook his head in sadness. Cai Wei had already managed to purchase 83 bottles of 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights for over 400,000 pieces of sky gold. This was a massive investment. If not for the sale of certain House Loulan businesses, their finances would have been unable to support his lavish expenditure. The worst part was that even after utilizing so many tempering treasures and his 5th-grade resonance improving by quite a bit, the distance to the 6th grade was still quite large. As a result, he had to figure out some way to allow his water-light resonance to reach the 6th grade before the final examinations. The most recent battle with Song Yunfeng might have been a draw, but Li Luo did not feel proud or content with that. He knew that if not for that time limit, he would have suffered a complete loss, left defeated and on the ground. A draw could not possibly occur within the final examinations. If one wanted to earn the right to enter the Astral Sage College, they were also required to possess sufficient strength. The most elite students across the academies of the Jiangsu province would participate. The battles would undoubtedly be intense and fierce, far from what occurred within South Wind Academy. Additionally, Li Luo had already selected a new energy cultivation art, which required a minimum of a 6th-grade resonance to practice. Thus, the 6th-grade water-light resonance was something he urgently required. Based on the rate of my progression, if I want to temper my resonance to the 6th grade, I still require one more batch of 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights. However, it seems like elder sister Cai Wei often takes the long way around whenever she spots me. It's almost as though she doesn't want to see me. Li Luo was left with a conundrum. Cai Wei had even avoided breakfast in recent days, perhaps spooked by the idea that Li Luo would want some more spirit liquids and purifying lights. 5th-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights weren't random cabbages found on the street. Each one cost at least 5,000 pieces of sky gold, and 50 would be 250,000 pieces of sky gold. This was already close to a year of income for House Loulan's businesses in the Jiangsu province. Thus, Li Luo completely understood why Cai Wei would avoid him. Even though she was an excellent general manager, the moment she took over the Jiangsu province's businesses, she had only constantly sold off House Loulan's properties instead of turning things around. This was basically ruining her reputation and career. Even so, she had not given up on the situation nor resigned, leading Li Luo to look at her with immense respect and appreciation for her broad-mindedness. Unfortunately, Li Luo had no alternative. This acquired resonance was a money-sucking black hole. It was a great thing that his parents had left behind House Loulan for him. Otherwise, he would just drop dead in 5 years. Let's first head to the Sun Creek Villa. Li Luo was a little depressed. House Loulan was surrounded by both internal and external problems, so he could not keep taking without giving back. Even if all of it could be mobilized at his beck and call, he would not actually take it to the extreme and completely sell off everything. If he actually did so, he would inevitably fall into disrepute. Most importantly, everyone would think of him as an ignorant, arrogant young master. This was a label that Li Luo did not want. Thinking things through, he came up with a few ideas and made his way towards the Sun Creek Villa. At the Sun Creek Villa, he directly went to Yang Lingqing's refining workshop. However, once he pushed the door open, he saw two familiar silhouettes sitting together, discussing something. A trace of concern could be seen on their expressions. Naturally, they were Cai Wei and Yang Lingqing. When they saw Li Luo, they exclaimed in surprise, "Young lord! What are you guys talking about?" Li Luo smiled as he walked in. Numerous crystal bottles containing spirit liquids and purifying lights were on the table in front of the two beauties. One of the bottles contained the first-grade spirit liquid he had personally refined before. "We are discussing this year's sales performance of the Sun Creek Villa," Cai Wei answered directly without any reservations. "It's not great." Li Luo frowned slightly when he heard this. The Sun Creek Villa was responsible for half of the Jiangsu province's income, and if performance faltered, this would affect him greatly. Yang Lingqing pointed at the crystal bottles with her slender, jade-like finger, her voice clear and cold. "There are two families competing with us in the first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights market. One is House Loulan with our azure jade spirit liquid, while the other is the Song family's pine nut villa. They produce this product known as the wondrous sunshine light. Both are quite similar in tempering strength, and in previous years, we captured perhaps 80% of the market as a whole. However, in recent times, the Pine Nut Villa has improved the tempering strength of their wondrous sunshine light. The average tempering strength is now close to 57%, which is almost on par with the best spirit liquids that the Sun Creek Villa is able to produce. As a result, they have managed to control over half of the first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights market, and our corresponding portion has decreased accordingly. If this continues, the Sun Creek Villa will eventually lose the battle against the Song family, bringing about great harm to the Sun Creek Villa and, more importantly, House Loulan as a whole." Li Luo listened intently, and his expression became solemn. "How is the Sun Creek Villa's production rate when it comes to first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights?" The Jiangsu province's Sun Creek Villa is able to produce 5 first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights a day, 150 in a month. This goes into the market for roughly 50 pieces of sky gold per item. In a year, the total comes up to about 90,000 pieces of sky gold. Deducting the costs would give us a profit of about 30,000 pieces of sky gold, Cai Wei said honestly. It was clear that she possessed an in-depth understanding of House Loulan's finances within the Jiangsu province. Li Luo gave Cai Wei a thumbs up in praise before becoming slightly surprised at these estimates. The first-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights alone brought in 10% of the Jiangsu province's profits. One could tell how important the sales of spirit liquids and purifying lights were. This was not completely unexpected because high-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights were not willfully squandered by people. Most of those who purchased first-grade and second-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights were not individuals with first- or second-grade resonances. Instead, it was people who wanted to support the expenditure of squandering higher-grade spirit liquids and purifying lights, thus utilizing these lower-grade treasures as replacements. The trade-off was that these lower-grade tempering treasures would inevitably cause a quicker buildup of impurities. There was no other option as not everyone was a rich young master like Li Luo. After hearing about this, Li Luo's first thought was that he could not let the Sun Creek Villa's businesses be affected. This would inevitably hurt him directly when it came to obtaining more spirit liquids in the future. How could the Pine Nut Villa's wondrous sunshine light improve in tempering strength? Li Luo asked. What determines a spirit liquid and purifying light's tempering strength is dependent on three aspects: the formula, the experience and strength of the individual, as well as the quality of the materials. Yang Lingqing continued indifferently. After investigating the wondrous sunshine light, it looks as though they have made minor changes to the formula. It looks as though the Song family has spent a large sum to hire an expert to make adjustments to it. Xia Wei's left hand was wrapped around her lower chest, propping up her right arm, which her chin was resting on. Frowning, she said, "Furthermore, that troublesome Zhuang Yi has been using this as a pretext to attack Lingqing, clamoring for her to be kicked out of the Sun Creek Villa as if this entire issue of lessened sales is due to her." The two of them were standing side by side, and Xia Wei with her unknowing actions had accidentally caused the natural differences between the two to be accentuated even further. Yang Lingqing's lack thereof could only be described as unfortunate. As though Yang Lingqing had subconsciously realized something, she emotionlessly pushed Xia Wei's right arm down. Xia Wei did not react initially, but her egg-shaped face was quickly flushed red in embarrassment. At the same time, she gave Yang Lingqing a strong pinch. After this brief exchange, the two focused their attention back onto Li Luo but realized that he was completely in a daze. Recovering gracefully, he put on a serious expression. "When we are discussing serious issues, don't fidget around. You two are mature adults after all. If this happens again, I will have to criticize your actions," he admonished. This immediately elicited cold snorts from the duo before they continued their discussion. "Is Zhuang Yi still creating trouble?" Li Luo asked to get things back on track. Upon hearing his name, Yang Lingqing's face blazed with fury. "That bastard has been finding trouble for me all day long. He has been creating layers upon layers of internal conflict within the Sun Creek Villa. The reason for our reduced production rate has to do with him. He truly is a disaster. Can we not figure out some way to get rid of him?" Li Luo grinned evilly, completely dissatisfied. Here he was, trying his best to raise a large amount of funds, but this troublemaker was creating more trouble instead of assisting him. Xia Wei frowned. The current Sun Creek Villa is a group lacking a leader. Lingqing is too new and does not wield much influence. Zhuang Yi, on the other hand, is an old and established individual. Many of the resonance artificers within the Sun Creek Villa trust him, and without a proper reason to dispose of him, it would inevitably create even more internal troubles. Furthermore, that damn Pei Hao is also supporting him. Li Luo scowled upon hearing this. Pei Hao, that white-eyed wolf, was the greatest danger to House Loulan. Zhuang Yi could only truly affect the Sun Creek Villa. Pei Hao, on the other hand, sought to gobble up the entirety of House Loulan. This was someone trying to steal his lifeline. The moment House Loulan was gobbled up, how could he find resources to satiate his bottomless acquired resonance? With his looks? Pei Hao had already established himself, while Li Luo was just a growing sprout, completely incapable of contending against him. In the meantime, all he could do was hide behind Sister Qing'e and slowly develop. As he continued trying to think of a method, someone came to report a new development. Young Lord, General Manager, and Vice President Yang. Vice President Zhuang has summoned Sun Creek Villa's entire management. He says there is a huge issue at hand. Would the three of you kindly attend? Upon hearing this announcement, the three of them were stunned by this event, looking at each other whilst frowning in dismay. Just what was that troublemaker up to this time? This video will end here.